So what happens when power gets so big, so immense, that the very systems designed to hold it in check just start to crack? Well, that's exactly what we're diving into today, the threshold of resistance.
Okay, so let's start with this idea right here. It's pretty simple, right? Power expands until something pushes back. And for a long, long time, private influence just kept growing, almost like no one was watching. But here's the thing. Every system has a breaking point, a threshold, a moment where it stops bending and starts to push back. That's the moment we're digging into.
So how did we even get to this point? I mean, it's not like this happened overnight. It was this slow, steady pressure just building and building until finally the imbalance was just undeniable. It was so tangible that the world's governing systems literally couldn't ignore it anymore. You know, for a while, all these risks were just theoretical, just ideas on paper. But then they became very, very real. And that was largely because of two people. This perfect storm of Adrian Voss, the ultimate financial insider, and Kyle Draven, the tech disruptor. When their influence combined, you started to see markets get shaky and public trust and authority just wear away. And that's what forced governments to stop just watching and actually do something.
Okay, so faced with this totally new reality, one they just couldn't deny, the world's systems started to move. And this is key. It wasn't just one country doing its own thing. No, this was the start of a huge, coordinated, global push to take back control.
Now, at first, the moves were pretty cautious. You had these regulatory proposals popping up almost at the same time in a bunch of different countries. You know, things like demands for more transparency, new restrictions, accountability frameworks. On their own, each one might have seemed kind of small. But when you put them all together, whoa, the message was crystal clear. The system was finally pushing back.
But pretty quickly, they realized that these small individual steps just weren't going to cut it. So a powerful group of nations decided, okay, we need to escalate. And that's when they called for it. A massive, high-stakes global summit to tackle this thing head-on.
And look at this agenda. It was super direct, no messing around. Basically, it came down to three big things. 1, define the limits of private power. Where's the line? 2, create real boundaries that actually work across different countries. And 3, this was the big one, build a system for real global accountability. I mean, they brought everyone to the table for this. World leaders, top economists, you name it.
And this right here, this question gets to the absolute heart of the problem they were facing. It's a total mismatch, right? You have this global, fast-moving power, and you're trying to regulate it with local, slow, country-by-country rules. It's like trying to catch a race car with a fishing net.
So while the world is busy trying to get its act together, trying to build this defense, guess what? The two people they're trying to contain, Adrian Voss and Kyle Draven, they're not just sitting around. Oh no, they're already launching their own, very sophisticated counterattack.
And what's so fascinating is how they did it. It was this classic pincer movement, attacking the summit from two sides at once. You had Voss, the ultimate insider, working within the system to shape the rules. And then you had Draven, the total outsider, working to tear down the system's credibility from the outside. Absolutely brilliant in a way.
See, Adrian's genius was all about subtlety. He didn't come in swinging, trying to block everything. No, that would have been too obvious. Instead, he adapted. He used all his influence to just gently steer the conversation, to make sure any new rules were just a little more flexible, a little less precise. He was calibrating the new system so he could still win inside of it.
Kale, though, totally different strategy. He went straight to the public and just blew up the whole conversation. He reframed the entire thing with this one powerful question, basically asking, hey, is this summit really about protecting you, or is it about an old, dusty system protecting its own power from the future? It was a direct challenge to their very legitimacy.
And wow, did it work. Suddenly, the fight wasn't just Voss and Draven versus the world anymore. Their two-pronged attack created these massive cracks inside the global coalition. All of a sudden, you had leaders who wanted tough, strict rules fighting with other leaders who are now terrified of the economic fallout. The alliance started to crumble from within.
All right, so this brings us to the climax of the summit. You've got these internal fractures, this division that was so perfectly engineered, and it all leads to an outcome that, honestly, you could see coming, but was still a huge deal.
So they bring out this final framework. This is supposed to be the big plan, the thing that would establish real global accountability. But by now, the coalition is just too weak, too divided.
The debate gets more and more intense, potential compromises just dissolve, and that original sense of we're all in this together, it just evaporated.
And the end result? No unified resolution. The summit ended without a single enforceable global standard. It just collapsed. All that was left was a pile of partial agreements and watered-down promises. The world tried to act as one, and it failed.
Now for Voss and Draven, this was a huge win, an absolute victory. Think about it. For Adrian, the system he knows how to play is still standing, and the new rules are manageable. For Kale, the system proved it was too fragmented, too slow to ever catch him. So two totally different strategies led to the exact same outcome. A clear signal that the system wasn't really in control at all.
But here's the kicker. The summit's failure didn't mean the fight was over. Not at all. It just changed the game. The effort to regulate didn't stop. It just splintered into a million pieces, becoming way more inconsistent and in a lot of ways, way more dangerous.
So you can really see the breakdown on this timeline. Before the summit, you had this coordinated discussion. During the summit, there was this big attempt at unified action. And what happened after? Total regulatory fragmentation, a complete free-for-all.
And this new landscape, it's just a mess. A total patchwork of different rules in different places, with wildly different levels of enforcement. This creates all kinds of new risks for the world, sure, but for our two guys, it's a field day. It creates all these little gaps for Kyle to slip through, and all this new complexity for Adrian to master and adapt to. They thrive in this chaos.
And you have to remember, the public was watching this whole thing unfold. And it's not like their confidence just collapsed overnight. It was more like a slow leak, an erosion. People saw the system try to flex its muscles, and then struggle. And that, subtly but powerfully, changes who you think is really in charge.
So, at the end of the day, the summit didn't solve the problem. Not even close. What it did was reveal just how deep and complex the problem really was. It was like pulling back a curtain and exposing a fundamental flaw. Our global system is trying to use an old playbook for a brand new game against forces that operate way beyond its original design.
And that leaves us with a really critical thought. Because there was no solution, that pressure on the system, it doesn't just go away. It keeps building. The summit's failure wasn't the end of the story. It was just the end of a chapter. It was the setup for the next unavoidable phase. The one where the consequences of all this uncontained power really start to ripple out.